Hey, greetings, everyone. I am honored and delighted to be joined for the second time by Marc Beckman with a really timely book, a very important subject about the threat of AI called Some Future Day. And the subtitle is How AI is Going to Change Everything. Actually, I appeared on his podcast. He did not appear yet on mine. So it's delightful to me to have this opportunity, and especially about the subject, which could not be more timely. I think he was prescient about this, of course, because it takes 2 years to write a book. So he knew before we all knew what an issue this would be. Very distinguished visitor guest, Marc Beckman is the CEO of the award-winning advertising agency DMA United. He has executed campaigns for the NBA, Pepsi, Sony, Warner Brothers Entertainment, NARS, one of my favorites, Washington, D.C., Nelson Mandela, Gucci, and MoMA. So eclectic. Beckman embraces emerging technology to augment campaigns, including artificial intelligence, AI, spatial computing, and blockchain. Wow. To date, he has leveraged AI, digital culture, and virtual worlds to launch platforms for over 100 brands and has created 7 marketplaces in Web3 for clients. Beckman's cross-sector approach includes programs in fashion, art, music, sports, and entertainment. His show, Some Future Day, examines technology, culture, and law. Notable guests include Wall Street Journal editor-in-chief Matt Murray, Yes, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers John Anderson and Stephen Howe, The Sopranos Emmy Award-winning Drea de Matteo, Israel's former director of Mossad, Donny Yatom, my goodness, U.S. State Department's official Mike Benz, Ayn Rand's chairman, Yaron Brook, and law professor Jonathan Turley, extraordinary. Beckman is also the best-selling author of The Comprehensive Guide, NFTs, Digital Artwork, Blockchain Technology. The book has received many accolades, including inclusion on JP Morgan's reading list. Beckman is a senior fellow of emerging technology and adjunct professor in luxury marketing at NYU Stern School of Business. As co-chair of the New York State Bar Association's task force on cryptocurrency and digital assets, Beckman is developing legal policy and best practices for cryptocurrency and digital assets. Like 360 degrees on this issue. Beckman received a Bachelor of Liberal Arts degree from Boston University and a Juris Doctorate from Hofstra University. He was admitted to the Bar Association of New York, New Jersey, and Washington, D.C. Wow.
This is why I tell my wife I need a real vacation.
Right, exactly.
Put my head in the sand,
I don't know how you do it all, but for our purposes, what leaps out from your bio, Mr. Beckman, is you're not just observing this, you're using these technologies. So you're in a better position than any outside commentator to warn us about what your concerns are. So now may I turn to the book? Incredible. So there's been a very newsworthy event. The House passed the Take It Down Act, sending it to President Trump's desk at the 100-day milestone in office. And it was a 409-2 sweeping nonpartisan, bipartisan vote. So for the first time in this bill, TikTok, Meta, Google, X, and other tech giants will be held accountable legally when their platforms are used to spread AI-generated deep fake porn. This has been championed by First Lady Melania Trump. And, the question, of course, is this a threat to free speech or a way to protect all of us? But in addition to this very timely issue, your book, raises incredible questions about AI and deep fakes, how AI is going to change everything. So let me just start with this. How is AI going to change everything?
Yeah, it's a big issue that you raised, and we could get into it. But just to provide some context, I'm a very big optimist as it relates to technology and artificial intelligence specifically. I believe that AI will fundamentally change our society for the better in 3 to 5 years.
Oh, wow.
It will do so in creating more value, economic value to our citizenry, and then in turn, theoretically, it should rise in different areas of society, such as advancements in medication and that whole vertical. Think in terms of access to food. It will create more jobs. Of course, some will be eliminated, Naomi, but it will create more jobs and beyond. So I'm really optimistic about it, and I believe we'll see this fundamental change, and it will impact your career, your family, and your community.
So, if you're fundamentally optimistic about it, why is there an incredibly scary kind of
Well,
all
that's
I
my
can hit upon looking closely is three alleged human dancers.
yeah.
I don't. If you're really just optimistic about it, why do we need a book to tell us what to prepare for?
So the image that you're spotting is great. We did not use AI to create this for the cover of the book, but it's a message that I'm signaling to the readers that we're seeing this the worlds of technology and humanity converge, and we'll continue to see that concept over time. And
Mhm.
it could be good. And to your point, there could be a legitimate threat about that as well. We're going to see total transformation. So, one threat as we see humans and technology converge is the loss of jobs.
Right.
And I talk about this quite a bit in the book, where automation and robotics will take over jobs that humans have had for a long time. And we could even focus directly in on the artificial intelligence sector. For
Mhm.
example, you might remember, Naomi, that President Trump had three great tech leaders the day after the inauguration visit the White House and pledge $500 billion to building hyperscale data centers.
Right. I totally
And
remember.
that's amazing because we need that. That's part of the AI ecosystem. Think in
Mhm.
terms of algorithm software, these hyperscale data centers, the hardware, computers, servers, chips, et cetera. And then the last component, of course, is power. But on this middle vertical, the hyperscale data centers, they're not going to really require a ton of human interaction and human staffing. A
Right.
lot of that, in fact, most of it, I predict, will be automated and robotics. And
Mhm.
these three leaders that came in, Larry Ellison, Masa Son, and Sam Altman from Oracle, um, SoftBank, and OpenAI, really are projecting into the future. We need to get that infrastructure built, and they're going to use robotics in many cases.
Right. Wow, you're leaping ahead to the heart of things, because one of the questions on my list is, I've been honestly very worried about the impact and influence of Silicon Valley, and specifically AI and these new technologies, on this administration. And I've actually written some essays about it that it seemed to have gotten me banned from Twitter again, or from X.
Again,
Well, sorry,
again,
I'm locked out again.
amazing.
Yeah, my point is, let's drill down in that for just a minute, okay? As kind of exciting and innovative as I can imagine, these big AI centers that President Trump announced, and this huge investment from overseas in these AI centers that are planned, and the interesting spectacle of these tech giants like Larry Ellison and his competitors uniting in this project, which is unusual and weird, I would say, but there they are. My worry is this. Let's just drill down on this for a minute. Let's just take government. I was freaking out about Doge's access, or Elon Musk's access to confidential data sets in the United States government that were siloed, because I have a tech company. It's not Oracle, but I understand the basics of, data privacy. And if you've got third party platforms, or machine reading, or AI, God knows, kind of inhaling all of these confidential data sets, they're no longer confidential, right? Depending on the agreement that kind of modifies how the AI is going to be used, who owns it. Is it sovereign AI? Is it, Musk's AI? Is it some third party AI? So number one is privacy, right? Like, and where does it go? Where do all those answers go about our medical records, our debts, our contractors for our businesses, A. B, say AI transforms the federal government. If you're annoyed trying to get someone at the Social Security office as it is now, there's a human being who's accountable. And ultimately, the government is accountable to you, even if it's hard and clunky and annoying. But with AI, no one's accountable, right? So who are you going to argue with if your Social Security check doesn't arrive? Hey, everyone, it's Naomi Wolf, and I have a message. President Trump is in the process of what he calls draining the swamp. But many in the MAGA movement and the MAHA movement are asking if he'll expose the entire pandemic. There's enough public evidence for people to be concerned who injected themselves in what has turned out to be a massive experiment. If you were compelled to get the shot for work, travel, maybe you just trusted the system, check out this natural solution formulated by hero doctor Peter McCullough in collaboration with the wellness company. They just leveled up their original detox formula, and it costs $30 less. We are introducing the 3-in-1 Ultimate Spike Detox. It's now conveniently consolidated into a single capsule with 4 times more nattokinase, 500 milligrams of bromelain, and 500 milligrams of turmeric root extract. Nattokinase, an enzyme researched for its anti-clotting effects, may work to break down spike proteins. Combined with bromelain and curcumin, it provides a potent blend for detoxification and cellular support. Crafted with 100% natural ingredients, Ultimate Spike Detox is backed by research. It offers effective support for your cell's natural repair and recovery. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. Peter McCullough, a top freedom-fighting doctor who risked it all to bring you the truth. Head over to dailyclouthealth.com and use the code DailyClout to get 10% off plus free shipping. Again, that's dailyclouthealth.com and use the code DailyClout to get 10% off and get back to that pre-COVID feeling. So to me, my worry there is AI is a great way for electeds of any administration wants to do this, right? It's not partisan. It's just so much easier to not have accountability to citizens. So what would you say to that? Why am I overreacting?
Sure. Well, you're really hitting on 2 components, right? The utility value of this new technology, artificial intelligence, in streamlining and providing better services for the community. That's the latter. And the former is privacy. Let's start with privacy because I think your concern is correct there. It's a big issue. First, to give some context, who's the holder of the user's data? Who
Right.
holds that privacy? Now, there are 2 issues here, and I'm interested in hearing what you have to say, Naomi. One is centralized corporations like the big tech companies from Google to Meta to X to TikTok and beyond. The other is the government. And it's not just the United States government, it's China too. Remember, we are in a true AI war right now with China.
Right.
Now, what's interesting is China's LLM that they launched, it's named DeepSeek. I'm sure you're familiar with it. 2 million Americans downloaded DeepSeek on their phone immediately after their launch without reading the terms and conditions. It was like this shiny silver object. And here's my concern about data privacy. The terms and conditions, as well as the law in China, state that if you upload any information and it's housed on a server in China, the Chinese government is permitted legally to access that information. Servers in China are free game for the Chinese government.
Right.
In order to sign up for DeepSeek, you're providing obviously confidential personal information, but then the LLM itself is really masterful. It's a good tool. Now imagine
Mr. Beckman, I just need to jump in because a lot of our viewers are not techies. LLM is large language model, right?
Correct. A large language model. And essentially with DeepSeek, you could use it in 2 different ways. You could use it, let's say the simplest way is to search a particular topic, and then it could provide a utility too. It could write a beautiful letter, it could write a memorandum, it could write a business plan, it could create images, etc. The second piece is for open source programming and sorts of this. Now, that's when a company could go in and leverage the LLM itself, the AI, to create different utilities for its consumers. So my advertising agency could essentially plug into DeepSeek's LLM, and you create like an advertising tool for a small business, something like this. Okay.
Yes.
So the concern that I have with regards to this large language model, DeepSeek, is that a powerful CEO can unknowingly upload information that ends up on DeepSeek's server. Maybe there's proprietary information, trade secrets, and whatever it might be. And that all becomes, and in good faith, right? How would that CEO realize that the terms and conditions and the law in China provide that China could access all that information? So there is a big fear with regards to data, and it's like, who holds the power?
Right.
Naomi, it's interesting also. I don't know if you've covered this, but I'm sure that you've thought about it. Like, do the big tech companies control really more power today in the world than the government, than the United States government, or is it the US government that's more powerful?
Obviously, well, you could debate both sides up until Elon Musk started to, I think, judging from the reports I read, put machine reading onto United States government data sets and seek to harmonize, which is what they were trying to do, all of them into one API. Right now they're siloed. So for people who don't understand, an API is like one fire hose of data from which you can create kind of multiple user interfaces, right? So this terrified me because there's only one reason I could see to do that, which is to expropriate the data, or to at least put it somewhere that is not within the confines of the federal government. As annoying as the federal government is, there are a lot of really beautiful and effective privacy controls and data integrity controls around it that would be gone if it's in someone else's cloud or in someone else's AI, basically. So I guess where I'm going with answering your question, Mr. Beckman, is if Elon Musk or some other tech giant in this partnership, which was announced with so much fanfare, is sucking up US government data into their platforms, they will become immediately more powerful than the federal government of the United States, and really more powerful than any government, any multinational entity, the UN. They will be the most powerful people on the planet.
So Naomi, to take that further beyond just accessing data, think about the power with regards to messaging that these tech companies have. So with artificial intelligence, these entities, these corporate entities, can now decide what type of content is being pushed in front of you, your family, and your loved ones, not just with social media, with anything. It could be long form content, scripted content, reality TV, whatever it might be. But this could have a chilling impact on entire societies. And again, getting back into the AI war of China versus the United States, just about 2 weeks ago, and this was reported in Reuters, China started a propaganda engine through the use of artificial intelligence into Taiwan. And they created original content that was the goal was to separate Taiwan's loyalty to the United States. And in video, all AI generated video format, written format, hyper realistic photography. They were pumping data and information into the Taiwanese citizenry to essentially create a negative impact surrounding America and democracy. So we're entering a very different world right now. In fact, you and I grew up in a time where it's like seeing and hearing is believing. And now it's not like that at all. Now, if you see it and you hear it, you better disbelieve, verify, and check.
Wow. Well, that is definitely a timely and important summary for what's ahead, because you're saying, and it conforms with my understanding, but you're in the belly of the beast, so you would know better than anyone, that really China or whoever has kind of the best or dominant AI model can literally construct the cultural reality and curricula reality and entertainment reality, propaganda reality, which will really merge with everything else because everything will be propaganda, of whole populations, and target basically target the propaganda, right? It's individualized. It becomes part of a learning loop, a feedback loop. Isn't that correct? Like if I'm in Taiwan and I'm a cat fancier, the propaganda aimed at me may be different from another Taiwanese who's into model cars, correct? You have to stay healthy and well at times like this. You know that I often have suffered from mobility issues, and now I don't. Part of my lifestyle is Native Path collagen. So, Native Path's collagen formula is made with ingredients that are scientifically developed to increase bone mineral density, support tissue recovery, reduce wrinkles, enhance hair thickness, and strengthen nails. Who wouldn't want more collagen with all of these benefits? So right now, when you visit getnativepath.com/daily clout, you can stock up on Native Path collagen for up to an incredible 45% off today, plus free shipping. Every order comes with a 365-day money back guarantee. You can try it risk-free today. It is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners, and it's third-party tested for heavy metals, which makes sure that it's pure and safe. It's flavorless. You can add it to anything. I add it to my oatmeal. You can add it to coffee or smoothies. Its formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes without clumping. And the best part is Native Path is offering amazing bundle deals, 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 five-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice, and they offer an 800 number. You can ask any question. A real person is waiting to help. You can join a private Facebook community. I love these people. Share recipes, success stories. So that's getnativepath.com/daily clout and start your experience of transformation today.
So content customization will be a major, major transformative moment through artificial intelligence. And that will be not just from content with regards to media, but even like shopping and retail and beyond, for sure. But it's something that you touched on, which I'd be remiss to not follow up, is the idea of education. So DeepSeek, again, going back to this Chinese LLM, DeepSeek today, if you put into the text box and prompt it to talk about Xi Jinping, Tiananmen Square, or even whether or not Uyghurs are slaves, it actually comes back with a response for all three verticals that are very pro-China, pro-CCP, and wouldn't align with your interpretation of Uyghurs or the American interpretation of the fact that Uyghurs are slaves. Now, take it a little further. I told you 2 million Americans in like the first couple of days downloaded. It went to #1 on the App Store. They downloaded DeepSeek. Now, think about the innocent Gen Z, Gen Alpha kid who's like just quickly using DeepSeek to get some answers for her homework, perhaps. Well, now we're in a situation where whose reality of history is going to teach the next generation? Are we going to be put in a situation where individual liberty is, let's say, restricted or limited somehow, positioned incorrectly because the CCP is pro-communist, perhaps?
Right. Wow. Well, that's head exploding because basically the CCP can accomplish what it's been trying to do for 50 years, which is erase any histories except the one they want to tell and become the dominant narrator in the world. And so everyone who downloads it will get that version of reality. So going back to your book, right, and your insights for America, we started this interview with you saying you're optimistic. Am I right to conclude, and I don't know how much I'm allowed to share, but you have a close relationship with at least one important member of the Trump administration, right? If not more. So I won't say more, but you're an influential person, let's put it that way, within the Trump circle. What are you optimistic, and are you writing this book in part to warn us about a kind of a new arms race, which is conceptual and technological and has to do with consciousness, and to urge us to line up and support a sovereign or US-based version of AI that tells our story in our terms, and A. B, even if we do that and we fight and win the propaganda war, way back to the Cold War, right? Except with new tools, really, like fighting propaganda and distributing around the world against communism. There's no guarantee. We're still exporting propaganda, right? There's still the risk that we're just going to be telling, positive, sanitized stories about our history and our way of life and our economy, as opposed to communicating real truth. I know those are two questions, but start with the first one.
Yep.
Did you write this book to warn people about the threat from China, and are you cheerful and optimistic because you're supporting a US victory in this arms race?
Yeah. So during the earlier part of our conversation, you mentioned the fact that a lot of my findings and learnings are derived from my experience with these emerging technologies. And in doing so, what I found is that a lot of people ask me, we have a lot of intelligent, curious people, and they ask, like, how can I improve my career? How can I improve my life? And I realized most people won't go and do the research themselves. They think it's tech, so it's a little intimidating and they're afraid of it and they back off. So what I wanted to do was create a book that transverses all of these different business sectors, from the creative industries, fashion, art, music, sports, entertainment, all the way into post-nuclear warfare, government, deep fakes. And I wanted to share the beginner in a non-techie way, practical hands-on application for this new technology, to give them the tools. The reader can access actual tools today to use artificial intelligence as a beginner, and to understand through storytelling, real stories, as to how AI is being implemented and how it will be implemented in the future. And that's the goal of the book. Now, in the book,
sorry, go ahead. Very useful.
Yeah, I think it's just for your for your viewers, for your audience. That's who I'm talking to. If you're intelligent and you're curious and you want to find a place to start, my book is the appropriate place. It's not for like deep techies. Like it's really a good starting point. But the truth is that I do talk quite a bit about the risks that are involved, and I go through like a massive chapter with regards to deep fakes and impact on government and warfare and the shifting nature of finances and economics and beyond. I also create what I call the iron triangle, where now we have, if you think about it, it really works well. AI could be used for content creation, and cryptocurrency could be used as a form of payment, and social media could be used for marketing purposes. And it's this iron triangle that can have a fundamental shift against all of the legacy industries.
Right.
It could be used in a good way to protect individual liberty. But again, if it's used with a centralized entity, whether it's a corporation or a government, dictatorship, communist approach, whatever, it could be really limiting and bad too. Right. And I get into all of those types of issues in the book as well.
Wow, that's so valuable. I don't think there's been a serious person to write a first book about kind of orienting the beginner to AI and then putting it in a larger social, political, economic context. In fact, one of the things that really struck me when I was in India is that just ordinary newspapers were doing a much better job explaining the how-to of AI to a broad, non-technical population than anything we have in the United States, where it's still very mystified. So thank goodness for your book, and I'm going to encourage everyone to get it. There's lots more to go into, though. So let me ask you this. I saw my reputation in 2021 after I was deplatformed change around the world all at once. And I was baffled by this because AI had not been rolled out and America explained, because I knew that human editors were not capable of that. So on reflection, clearly AI already existed, right, in 2021. It just hadn't been announced in the same way. And I found some evidence of this, hidden away in an article on Bloomberg, which then was removed from the internet. So why I bring this up is the AI masters, or people who were involved in AI, must have known for some years that this was next, right? This, before ChatGPT was announced. And also, I notice our globalist slave masters, or would-be slave masters, also have been racing since 2020 to roll out centralization of systems, especially digital systems, digital ID, unified medical records, central bank digital currency, vaccine passports, right? All of the justifications for why they need to track us. In retrospect, Mr. Beckman, did they do that? Because that takes some years of planning as well. Are we in a race because they knew this was coming, right? They knew the positive iron triangle human ability to decouple from the control grids that create their own digital pathways, right? Free of centralized coercion was a technologically possible very soon. So they're racing to preempt that. Is that, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I totally do. And I think it's, there's a reality there, but it's really, in my opinion, it's really being driven mainly by corporations here in America right now. I think the Trump administration is doing a masterful job in deregulating and unlocking American ingenuity. So innovation accelerates as it relates to AI, so
Yeah,
does investment, as will talent. These are all critical parts to us winning the AI war. But
right.
something you mentioned, Naomi, which is just really telling, and I feel like we should take a second to explain it to the audience, if you don't mind, is like you mentioned coercion and CBDCs. And in my book, I really show how AI and cryptocurrency are inexorably connected forever. I personally believe, in fact, that AI and cryptocurrency will represent the largest percentage-wise, the largest growth sector in the United States over the next 4 to 5 years.
Wow.
And it's interesting to note that AI, again, there are a lot of risks. So think in terms of like facial recognition. Of course, the strongest facial recognition software in the world right now is in China, but
Wow.
we're already using it in places like Miami and New York City now. And if the government has the ability to stand up and operate a central bank digital currency, they also then can coerce you. They could control your behavior.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's not time for you to fuel up, use more energy for your EV, and therefore you can't drive across town and have the liberties and freedoms that come without government coercion.
Right.
These are all issues. So President Trump, in his first executive order on the topic, actually said the United States will not interact with CBDCs. We will not create a CBDC. So that's encouraging. But it really is an interesting dynamic where AI and crypto, I just see them standing up together for a lot of different issues, authentication purposes, monetization purposes, and beyond.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that, and you're making me, in just half an hour, much more cheerful about this whole future than I was before. We could talk for hours, and please, if your schedule permits in the near future, and if it's helpful for your really important book, some future day, please come back and talk more to us. There's so many questions, but I have 1 minute? Can
Take
I
your
ask
time up.
a
Yeah, it's up to you.
question?
Yeah, yeah.
Super fast. So from what I understand, AI overnight could replace me as a writer and you as someone who runs ad campaigns. So why should we in our professions be optimistic about AI?
Okay. So Naomi Wolf, I love that you asked that question. And I actually tackle it head on in the book.
Okay.
I wonder, like, you are a way more prolific writer than I am, and I admire your work, as you're aware, so much. And I wonder if you've ever had this experience where, as you get into beginning the writing and your theories, you might have a stance with
Mm,
a particular position one way, and then when you come out at the end, you change your mind.
every day.
This happened to me in the book. I
Uh-huh.
truly stood up and I said, you know what? Unfortunately, great minds like Naomi Wolf, writers that are so talented like Naomi Wolf, aren't required anymore. By the end of the book, I
Mhm.
totally flipped. I believe man will beat machine in the creative industries all day long. And here's why.
Mhm.
And I use Bob Dylan actually as an example. Imagine if you and I wanted to leverage artificial intelligence right now to write a revolutionary song, a song of freedom. It could create the lyrics in a matter of seconds. It could create the music in a matter of seconds. We could post it, promote it, and sell it literally in a matter of minutes.
Mhm.
However, the machine will never have the soul that you or Bob Dylan have. The machine will never be able to access the emotion that you find on the streets, in the corridors of office buildings and
Mhm.
beyond. You, the person, the creator, the journalist, the writer, the investigator, only you could understand that emotion. And the machine will never be able to replace that. They'll never be able to replace you or Bob Dylan.
From your mouth to God's ears, as my grandmother would say. That is a very hopeful note to end on. So everyone, you've got immediately today to go out and order Marc Beckman's Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. It's going to turn into a classic. It's going to turn into the handbook. Everyone needs to understand this new era and not be overwhelmed by it. Ideally, go to skyhorse.com, and alternatively go to Amazon, and let's make this a #1 bestseller. Thank you so much, Mr. Beckman, and please come back anytime.
Thank
And where
you.
can people find you in addition to that? Do you have
People
social?
can find me on social media at Marc, M-A-R-C, Beckman, B-E-C-K-M-A-N. I'm on X. I'm on Instagram. My show is on YouTube. So it's at Marc Beckman, M-A-R-C, B-E-C-K-M-A-N.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Beckman. Everyone follow Mr. Beckman and read this book. Take care.